All right, good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This is Wednesday morning's edition of Ask the Master Auto Technician. And people ask me questions all the time. I mean, I get questions from why does my car do what it does to I even get questions about lawnmowers ever so often. And speaking of lawnmowers, I've got Frank Sundrum calling, and anyway. Good morning, Frank. How are we doing this morning?
Good morning, and I am the owner of a once again fine running Honda lawnmower.
But one of the things, was I correct about when we put that jet must have been clogged because once we blew that out, everything seems to be working now as designed?
Yes.
Good. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, that on today's, really, especially with today's fuel, it has ethanol in it, and if it gets in there and there's any trash or anything inside there, it will actually pick it up and clog the jets up real easy, and then you end up doing what you had to do. Now, I know you've been using ethanol-free fuel in that vehicle, in that lawnmower.
I have not, and
Oh.
I need to start doing that because I think they not only make the ethanol out of cheap gasoline, I think they make it out of cheap corn.
Well, I don't know about cheap corn, but I know the price of corn is getting more and more expensive.
I know it's GMO corn.
Genetically modified. Matter of fact, speaking of that, I got people that, I raise bees, and the guy that's helping take care of my bees, I said, I need to go buy some high fructose corn syrup. He said, tell you what, instead of you go buy that, let me go buy the sugar. You reimburse me for the sugar, and I'll feed your bees sugar water instead of high fructose corn syrup. And he just does not like to feed bees GMO corn syrup. And I went, okay, if that's what you want.
Does he not understand that sugar is GMO also?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go there, honey. Sometimes what people's ideas of reality is not exactly reality. So you don't argue with people on that case. But you're absolutely right. But Frank, but you're talking about cheap corn. But I was reading today's paper where the Trump administration, I'm not trying to change subjects here, may be giving farmers subsidies to help them, especially soybean farmers, with the tariffs that may be coming over, so they won't suffer the blow or the wrath of losing market share, so to speak, selling soybeans. I didn't know if you'd read that or not, or heard anything about that.
Well, as you know, I follow all things corn because of the time I spent in Illinois and Iowa.
Yes, sir.
And I happened to be there this weekend, and that corn in mid-July was almost 10 feet tall. We are in for a bumper crop this year, which is going to kill the farmers for two reasons. One is you're going to have a surplus, which they love but they don't like, because it means lower prices because there's so much corn.
Mm-hmm.
And now that both Mexico and China are stopping to buy corn, American corn, because of the tariffs as a retaliation,
mm-hmm.
we're going to be in for some very interesting times. So the same money that Mexico was not going to pay for the wall
mm-hmm.
with is now going to go pay for the corn that China and Mexico are not going to buy.
Well, I know that being a farmer is one job. I don't think that's hard work. I mean, you have to worry about it raining. You have to worry about it being too wet, being too dry, too cold, too hot, and you just never know what's going to happen. And that's a job I wouldn't want. And now they're having to fight the idea of tariffs on exporting product. And I really don't understand the ramifications of what's happening on these tariffs. It seems like Trump's saying, now forgive me if I'm wrong on this, that they're charging us, they're not being fair. Let's see, what I'm trying to say is they're making sure we have tariffs and we're not charging them tariffs, so now we're making it an equal playing field. I'm kind of going, I don't know if it's an equal playing field or not. I just know that when people start not selling their product, they're going to be very upset, especially if it affects their livelihood, especially farmers. And even Harley Davidson, we talked about that before, how Harley Davidson is going to eat the $2,200 extra in tariffs. It's going to add to the purchase price of a motorcycle overseas. And they said they're just going to absorb that cost. I don't see how they can do that over a period of time. Maybe, I don't know. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, going to Harley. Well, first of all, a little confession and disclosure.
All right.
I'm actually an escapee from a school of economics. I actually understand the stuff. All right.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is to say, I do not understand what Donald Trump is doing by laying down tariffs and starting a trade war, because this is going to end very, very badly. And you already see the signs of it all over the country, because what the Chinese have done very cleverly
Mm-hmm.
is target what products they're going to lay tariffs down on.
Mm.
So, from Paul Ryan's district, well, what does Paul Ryan's district do? Well, they do milk and they do cheese, which
True.
they export.
Mm. True.
Okay, so guess what? There is now there are now tariffs on American cheese. And
Okay.
what does Mitch McConnell's district do? Well, they do corn, they do tobacco, and they do bourbon. Guess what? There are now tariffs on all those products.
Hmm.
And what the Chinese are doing very smartly is, and Harley Davidson is another product from Paul Ryan's district. Paul Ryan happens to be the outgoing U.S. Speaker of the House.
Ah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that affects his district and his people very directly. Okay, so so what you got is a trade war going. Mexico says, you want to play games with us over the wall?
Yeah.
Guess what? We're not going to buy your corn. We're going to buy corn from Ecuador. We're going to do these things. So now all of a sudden, to the American taxpayer, who's we're in a global economy. I do not think that Donald Trump quite appreciates that, because he spent most of his life in a building in New York.
Mhm.
Not the best place to be if you want to be cosmopolitan. All right?
True.
New York's not cosmopolitan, and neither is Trump Tower. So he doesn't understand a darn thing about economics or that, but he does understand something about bluster.
Well,
And that's what all this is. But meanwhile, it's already causing layoffs all over the country. You're seeing pockets of people getting laid off. There's a company in, I think it's Missouri, that makes nails.
Mm-hmm. Makes
Well,
nails. Okay.
Yeah, and now that Chinese steel is the price of Chinese steel is going up. They're getting forced out of business. They're losing customers. So guess where the nails is coming from?
China.
Mexico.
Oh, Mexico. Okay. Maybe they're going to need use those nails to build the wall. That's it. Yeah.
Maybe so. And, as you know, politically, I am a Marxist. Right of Harpo, left of Zeppo. But,
Wrong Marxes out there, y'all listening out there. We're talking about the Marx brothers,
yeah.
not Carl.
yeah. Well, I think Carl was a lost cousin. But
Well,
nonetheless,
yes, he was.
this is really a case of economic ready, fire, aim.
Well, yeah, you got a point there, and I think they call that Hegelian dialectic. And that's what happens is you already have a solution in mind, and so you create the problem to get the solution you want. Is that what you think is happening?
Well, except that I don't think it's a solution he wants, because, unfortunately, our president sort of works in a very closed information loop. He listens to, he speaks of Fox TV broadcasts it, and he watches Fox TV almost exclusively. So all he hears is his own words coming back to him, embellished and interpreted. So it's kind of a very, very funny kind of an information loop. It's well known that the man does not read. And so where does he get his information from? One place. That is, shall we say, not the most accurate place to go for your news, and not the most reliable place to go for your news.
Well, I know that I gave up watching TV about, back when I saw what the Republicans did to Ron Paul. I said, and Fox News as well. I said, you know what? It's a fixed game, and it's a big party. Unfortunately, I'm not a part of that big party, so that's why I joined the Libertarian Party. But one of the things, let's get back here about the corn here. You talked about cheap corn. If that price of corn drops precipitously, what I think it's going to do, they're going to have to make it where they can sell it. They're going to have to drop the price even more to be able to sell it to Mexico instead of buying it from Ecuador. Do you see that happening where the bottom just falls out on corn, where they're almost giving it away? Is that what you see?
It's already happening. It's already happening. The corn, January corn for next year, the prices are already dropping considerably in anticipation.
Okay.
Folks need to remember something. All the corn that is grown is not sold the week that it's harvested.
No,
It's
no.
put into silos,
Right.
and it is saved for another day. This is feed corn. This is not the stuff that you and I buy from the farm stand.
Right.
Right.
This is
So
feed corn. Right.
Yeah. And one of the things that Iowa did very, very cleverly, and I think very unethically, is that essentially they bought the politicians and essentially forced the sale of ethanol,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is absolute garbage,
Yes.
onto the entire U.S. population.
That's absolutely. That's
you know,
exactly right. Now, what they'll do is they say, "Well, look, we're going to make it nicer for everybody out there. We're going to save the environment. We're going to make a renewable resource." And here's the other thing they're saying: is we're going to be able to take this corn feed, make alcohol out of it, gasoline out of it for gasoline, and then turn around and still use it to feed livestock. And I'm going, yeah, you can do all that. So they get two crops out of it, but what ends up paying is that you and I end up suffering by tearing our cars up, or our motorcycles or lawnmowers. And to me, they're subsidizing the price of non-ethanol gas out there is like almost $4 a gallon. Where ethanol gas, 10% ethanol gas is what, $3.27, $3.35, something like that. So regular gasoline without ethanol is more expensive, but the government is subsidizing that price by putting that ethanol in it, and people just, it's really, we're being sold a bill of goods on ethanol.
well, this all comes from the Brazilian model.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 70s, when the first oil shock came by, Brazil got smart.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided, well, hey, we are a tropical country, and things grow really fast out here. So let us do something like that. So Brazil converted to alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
okay, gasoline and alcohol. Only they use sugar beets instead of corn.
That's right. That's what sugar beets. Yes, thank you. A lot of people don't know that.
And sugar beets are far more efficient at generating sugar than is corn. Corn has 4% sugar. Sugar beets have something like 60 or 70% sugar in there.
Uh-huh.
All right? But the politics of this country lent itself to corn rather than sugar beets.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of going to sugar beets, we went to corn, because what does Iowa have besides corn and field?
Politicians.
They have politicians, and they have the Iowa caucus every 4 years.
Yep.
So 2 out of every 4 years, there are politicians running around there singing hymns about the joys of ethanol, which is absolute nonsense.
And I cannot argue with you right there. I went to Tallahassee back in 2012, along with Karen Schoen. She'll be on here in a few minutes. And we went up there to testify with Matt Gaetz about, they were trying to make it where you could not buy ethanol-free fuel to put in your car by the January 1st, 2014. That's what they were trying to do. And we went to that court, it actually passed by one vote in the committee to go to the House to be voted on, and they did, and I'm thankful for that. They did, but it barely passed, but it did. That's what allows you and I to buy ethanol-free fuel for our cars if we want to, which gives us at least 10% better gas mileage.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower, and toilet emergency drain services.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
Good morning, Panama City. This is Wednesday morning, second part of our show. I got Karen Schoen here. We just got off with Frank Sundrum. We were talking about ethanol fuel. And I know that's not what you were going to talk about this morning, Karen, but I was just telling him how we went back in 2012. We went to the Energy Committee up in Tallahassee, and that was a memorable experience, especially when I found out who the people were that were supporting ethanol fuel. Was that a shock to you when we went up there to see who was supporting the production of ethanol fuel?
Yes.
It was kind of shocking. You wouldn't think the oil industry would be so wanting that, but they do. They want it. They were the ones pushing for ethanol.
Yeah, isn't it? I was really, really surprised
Well,
on that one. And it only goes to the fact that the big conglomerates are buying up the farm area, and they're producing what they want, which you and I know as soon as they started with that, the food prices, I think they went up by at least a third.
well, that's what we were talking about down in Brazil. Years ago, they realized they lived in a tropical climate and they could grow things very, very well. But instead of them growing growing corn or sugar, they decided to use sugar beets, which put out like 40% sugar versus 4% sugar that corn has. But our politicians want to, like Iowa, Kentucky, even here in Florida, especially, they don't want to grow something that will. In my opinion, which is more cost effective and doesn't raise the price of food for you and I. They want to grow food to use as fuel and food for our cattle, which I see no problem raising food for cattle. But dadgummit, when you're getting a $4 billion a year subsidy to make ethanol from the government.
I think it's time to stop the ethanol subsidy.
That's the catch.
And, that we were not able to accomplish. We were able to accomplish getting regular gas being used at regular pumps, and that, wouldn't be a crime to put gas in your car, or gas in your engine, because all of the engines were being moved by the ethanol.
That's what we were talking about.
Off-road engines, I should say.
Well, what they're being done, like you have a carburetor. We were talking about he had to bring me a carburetor from his lawnmower yesterday. It was clogged up because he'd been running ethanol fuel in it, and the jets were clogged up, and we got it fixed, and that's not a big deal. But the point is, not everybody can do this. A lot of people just say, oh, my God, I got to take it to a shop, $200 later, I got another carburetor on there. I have to do this every year. It gets kind of old. Cars do the same thing with fuel pumps. And what I'm thinking is they've done this to the American public to say, well, because if you buy non-ethanol gas, it's almost $4 a gallon. But if you go buy gas with ethanol in it, it's like $3.35. So people are getting a false sense of cheap gas prices. But say, look, I'm paying $3.35 versus $4 a gallon for ethanol free, but they're getting 10% less gas mileage.
That's right, and I don't think they even realize that they're paying more, getting less, and have the possibility of ruining their equipment.
Well, my wife was telling me the other day there's a station on the beach that's selling E85. Did you tell me that, Anna Marie? They're selling E85 gas?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
There's a place on the beach selling E85. And if someone puts E85 in their car that's not designed for E85, they're not going to go anywhere. The car is not going to run. Honest to goodness, it will not run very well, and they're going to have problems. And you get even if the car is designed for E85, let's give an example. If you run ethanol-free fuel, you may get 20 miles to a gallon. Now, I'm just talking about a truck. If you run 10% ethanol, you're going to get about 18 miles to a gallon, 17 to 18. If you run E85, you'll be lucky to get 10 miles to a gallon. And you're paying. I'm serious.
And this is one of those things that you shake your head and you say, what the heck are they doing?
Well,
and then when you follow the money, you realize that the money is all being tied up with the major gas companies, and they're writing the ticket and playing the show.
Well,
it goes with everything else. Look at what they just did with the straws, plastic straws. What is the one item that has the least effect on the plastic that's being thrown in the ocean? Straws. So what did they ban? Straws, plastic straws. Now, does that make sense? Absolutely not. What's going to go out of business? What's going to have to change? What's going to lose jobs? Plastic straws. Why? Just because somebody had an emotional moment and felt that they had to do something without investigating what that something would really have an effect for.
It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's the same
Yes.
thing that happens when there's a school shooting, ban guns.
Exactly.
It's the same thing that
Exactly.
happens when there's an oil spill, ban tankers, ban drilling for oil. I mean,
Right.
it's a need. The unintended consequences of your actions are going to be. We're going to find out. Now, the straws, I don't know what the unintended consequences could be. Can you think of something that might be detrimental if we
Well,
did this?
they've been saying that people who are handicapped,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that they use are the plastic straws.
Yeah, the ones that bend,
Now,
absolutely. You're right.
Who is this going to affect the most as plastic straws come off the market and then become exorbitantly expensive in order to get one? The people who need them the most.
Huh.
They're going to wind up paying the worst price for for not being able to use something that they've been using for years that actually helps.
Can you think of something else in the last few years that they've done this to? I can, if you can't think of one. How about like?
You mean in industry?
I want to ask something about, let's go back to the straws for just a minute.
Okay.
You're talking about disposable plastic straws, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, because my mother uses dishwashable plastic straws. So they're still available in something that you're not going to throw away.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Well, now that's fine on that part, but here's the other thing we're talking about: unintended consequences. Light bulbs. A few years ago,
Right.
incandescent light bulbs you can't make them anymore in America. They shut that industry down. You have to buy LED. And
Yes.
and those, if I'm not mistaken, when you break those, you have to call out a hazardous material team to clean them up. I mean, because of mercury. Now, come on now, people, be consistent. One day you tell me I can't use this because it's got mercury in it and I'm going to die. And now you tell me I can't use light bulbs because they use too much energy. And so you replace it with light bulbs that have mercury in it. I'm going, okay.
Now, the light bulbs that we're replacing them with are what, 4 times the amount of money.
Well, these are
And they do use less energy. So what happens when they use less energy? Well, the energy companies have a bottom line, and they have to meet that bottom line. So if they're shutting down one avenue of revenue, they're going to pick it up someplace else. So what happened over the years? Take a look at your electric bill. Are the electric rates going up or are they going down?
Well,
They're going up. Why? Because we're not using as much electricity, but the electric companies still have to make the same amount of revenue.
It's the same thing about, we've been talking about road taxes on gasoline. You buy, the less miles per gallon you get, the more taxes you're paying because you pay a tax per gallon, not miles per, so you're paying a tax. And what's happening is they're finding out over the years now, used to average on cars that average 20 miles to a gallon pay about an extra $10 a month in taxes, $10.43 a month in taxes, something like that for those cars. Cars like my Prius that average 42 miles to 44 miles a gallon average about $6, somewhere there around $6 a month extra in taxes, extra in road taxes, where electric cars are getting a big zero because they're electric. And they're going, whoa, we have a problem here, Houston. We got to figure out how to get that back on the revenue. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make it where we're going to tax you per mile. And I'm serious. That's where they're going with it. You're going to tax you per mile.
Exactly where they're going. Exactly. And while they're doing that, they're asking for more money for roads. And when they get the money for roads, they're not using the money for roads. They're busy building bike paths and roundabouts, things that stop automobiles instead of making traffic patterns easier for people. Because the real goal is that they don't want you to use the car.
Well, I tell you what, if you don't believe that, go to 30A out there and try driving. I mean, that's a scary place to drive because people will come out there on their bicycles and on their on the bike path, and they have the right of way, and they'll pull right out in front of you without looking, and it's scary.
And then they wonder why they have more accidents with bicycles.
I was just blown away. I'm sitting there going, I was white knuckle trying to drive over there, and I'm doing it in my Prius, which doesn't make much noise. And I'm sitting there going, they can't hear me, and they'd come zooming right across there. I'm going, these people aren't right. They're NQR, not quite right. They're going to
Well,
get themselves.
that's really what our government has done. They shut down an avenue without recognizing the revenue source of that avenue, and then it just winds up being another tax on the people because they still have to make up the revenue. The need for revenue is not going to go away. It just has to come from a different revenue stream, and it always falls on the backs of the public.
Well, that's what's happening in Panama City. I read today's paper today. They're going to have a tax increase on the millage rate. They're going to go from 0.39 whatever to 0.5 something. I'm going, isn't that just wonderful? Another if you have a $100,000 house, it's going to add another $10.43 a year to your tax bill. And I'm saying, that's not much they're trying to tell you. But when you got thousands of people that gets they pay an extra $10 to $20 more a year, that adds up, and that's what they can do. Like I tell people, taxation is nothing more than theft. It's organized, it's legal plunder. That's not me. I didn't come up with that original. That was Frederick Bastiat that said that. Taxation.
And he was absolutely right. It is legal plunder.
Legal plunder is all it is. That's how they do what you and I would go to jail for. If we extorted money from our neighbors, you and I would go to jail. But then I have people say, but what about my roads? And I go, what about your roads? How are they going to get built? The same way they've been built forever. They pay private companies to build them. You don't
That's
think,
right.
That's how they do it. And you pay for use.
Exactly right. And that is the one that works. So that's the one that they don't use.
Well, if you're using a road like a toll road, I have people say, look, toll roads are some of the best roads out there, and they're maintained because you're paying for it. I got no problem with a user tax. What I have a problem is, like if you own your house, you've paid for your house, that's all done, but they still charge you tax every year to live in it. You don't pay that tax, they will steal your house from you. You don't believe me? Try not paying your taxes on your property for a couple years. You'll find out.
Exactly. There is a huge legal plunder.
They will steal it from you, and they'll say, but it's legal. We're following the law. Nuremberg trials. We just followed the law, following orders.
I'm just doing my job, Master. I'm just doing my job. Just do what you tell me to do, right? I have a thought process somewhere in there. And then begin to ask questions and say, where is this actually going and what is this actually doing? And what am I benefiting from? Because that's really, we're supposed to be benefiting from the taxes that we're paying. Well, what are you benefiting from?
Well, we're benefiting down here where people are watching government grow. We're watching them hire more employees, build bigger buildings, throw away buildings, sell buildings for $700,000 that a year ago sold for $400,000. It's amazing what we see out there. We're seeing a lot of graft and corruption, but then we'll hear for the children. And I go, oh, that makes it okay. We're going to be we're going to pay $400,000. We're going to pay $300,000 more because it's for the children.
For the children.
Now I hear people are going to kind of put these two together, but that has to do with Bay High School and trying to buy property out of the CRA. It's how they take our tax money and they steal from you right in front of your eyes. They do that.
Well, we have a gentleman running for office who's running for governor. His name is Adam Putnam.
Of course,
he did a deal like that.
His
family property was appraised. I believe it was 12,000 acres, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was appraised for, I think, $1.2 million, and he sold it to the state for $9 million. Wasn't that nice of him to do that?
Well,
now he's running for governor. Isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's the same guy that went into office at 22 years old, had a net worth of $400,000, and 8 years later had the net worth of $4 million. I wish I could join I want to get in government. That way I can make money like that. I have to work for mine. All right, Karen, we got to go. We've gone way too long. I may have to edit all